is a longtime Quincy farming family. They've been farming in the Quincy area since the 1950s. They planted their first wine grapes in 1997. So Jack, our founder, was sort of a visionary for North Central Washington. He really understood that wine grapes were going to be great value for this area. So his first grapes were planted on the Wahluke Slope, which is down in Mattawa. And that's additionally where our wine crushing facility is. And that's where the Jones of Washington boutique wine is actually made, is in that facility. He linked up with another farmer, a guy named Dick Shaw, and they partnered together to mutually fund this wine tasting endeavor. Jack Jones also planted some vineyards in Quincy, which before it became the ancient Lakes AVA, and that was on the, if you're familiar, it's along the Trinidad area, that big hill. So if you look off to the left, you'll see those are Jones of Washington vineyards, and that particular vineyard is Two Gun, I believe. So Victor Palencia is our winemaker, and he's been with the Jones organization for a long time. He's an energetic young man who has been just really forward thinking and has been innovative in his winemaking skills. And a little fact about him is he started making wine when he was 18 years old. So he was just a youngster when he started actually making wine in the Yakima Valley. So Christy?
Yes, so I hope, well, we all have our tasting kits today. This is the cutest little thing ever. So we've got 6 different varietals that we're going to be tasting tonight. They're all going to be 1.7 ounces. So after we're done, it's going to be about a glass and a half. You don't have to pour everything, but why not as well? So get that glass. Another good thing, maybe have a little glass of water to in between your tastings. That's going to be a good thing to have to just as a palate cleanser. So, but the most important part of what we're doing tonight is we're just having fun. We're going to experiment, and we're all here with our friends. And yep, so we have 6 servings tonight. It's all going to be on your tasting sheets, what we're going to be tasting. So we're going to start with that Chardonnay. So we're going to go in that order. And, but yeah, so have fun tonight.
So before we begin, I just wanted to say that Christy is going to be talking as well about some food pairings. So we'll have those suggestions for you as we move through our tasting today. So, and our recipes will be available on Facebook after tonight. So if anybody's interested in that, because that, once again, food and wine can't go, the pairings are always so much fun, and that always complements each other. So, all right. So many of you are probably seasoned wine drinkers, and perhaps that you already know the 4 steps to tasting wine, but I thought I would just go ahead and start with that. So the first step when you pour the wine, and we're going to start with our 2019 Chardonnay, and I'm hoping that everybody has their Chardonnay poured. 2019, this is a new release for Jones. But one of the things that you want to look at with wine is the color. So you can hold it up to the light, or you can also hold it up to a sheet of paper. It doesn't really show super well on the Zoom screen. And you can tell by the color of the wine, right? You can tell if it's going to be light and bright, because the hue of the wine is not going to be quite as intense as if it was maybe a red, and the red's going to be, the hue is going to be dark. That's going to signify, bolder flavors as opposed to a lighter wine. So that's a clue when you're wine tasting. The next piece is maybe looking at the aromatics, and that's where you take your wine and you're going to swirl. And I'm a world-class swirler, but I tend to sometimes splash, so sometimes it's best to swirl your wine on a tabletop. So
we have something called wine away if you do spill.
Yeah,
and that works great.
There's something called wine away. You just splash. We really know a lot about that. So
yeah.
So why are we doing this? Why are we
So
swirling?
the reason why you swirl is that the next step in wine tasting is to smell. And so when you swirl wine, red or white, you are going to release the aromatics. It's going to dissipate the alcohol, and you're going to, when you do smell, you're going to be able to really get the fruit or whatever flavor that you're going to try to ascertain from your nose. All right. So let's swirl, swirl, swirl.
Yeah, it does get
Okay.
rid of a lot of the alcohol smell when you swirl it.
Yes, it does. It dissipates the alcohol, the ethanol that is inherent in wines. So
It has a wonderful nose. I just love
it does. Yeah, this 19 is super. Yeah, super great. So Jones of Washington wines tend to be really aromatic. So this tonight's all about just, you know, having some fun and taking time, and we've got a little bit of time to taste through these 6 wines. So take a sniff. So we've looked at the wine, we've seen the color, the clarity. Now we're going to sniff. So really get your nose in there and see if you can ascertain. So you always think in broad categories. So do you get fruit, or maybe some herbs, or perhaps some floral?
So I don't know if it's just my nose. I always smell fruit when it's like the first thing in almost every wine, and it is fruit made, so it just makes sense. But
yeah, and sometimes I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that, you know, wine is subjective, and so what you smell is highly subjective. And if you just smell wine, that's okay. But the more you sniff and the more you taste, the more acute your smelling sense will come about when you're trying to find those aromatics.
One of our participants is suggesting apricots.
Yes, apricots. Anybody else?
Also,
I noticed on the notes that honey crisp, apple, and meringue pie.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to work on that.
Yeah. So when I sniff,
citrus.
I get a lot of lemon, a lot of citrus. So yeah, and you know, oftentimes you have to take more than one smell, right? Sometimes you can take a deep, long sniff or a short little sniff. The other piece about smelling, citrus and apples. Oh, I hear citrus. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of have a little bit of a green apple. All right. So other aromas that you might get from the wine, as we talked earlier about the categories of fruit or herbs or floral, is the secondary aromatics, and those come from the winemaking process or the barreling. So those you might pick up might be spice, or you might taste vanilla or caramel, and those are actually from the come from the secondary processing and the barrel. So, all right. So are we ready to take a taste, everyone?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So when you taste, you're going to try to, once again, thinking in categories. So tannins is something that you want to be aware of. And we talk a lot about tannins in the tasting room because many people either love tannins or hate tannins. So tannins are something, that's where you get that sort of that astringence and dryness in your mouth. We also want to think about sweetness, which is the measured residual sugar in the wine. The acidity is another piece that you want to look at, and that's what makes your mouth water. One of the things that I really like is a wine that's got good acidity, and I think that a lot of the Jones whites have that very much so. And then the last would be a finish. You know, do you have a long finish, or do you have a short finish and there's not much to it? Those are things that you can pay attention and note in your tasting. So when you take a drink, you might want to really roll it around in your mouth and then see what flavors you come up with. So let's do that.
So Casey, on this one, it's done in 100% new American oak. And the wines of Napa and California do I don't know of one that does it in American oak. They all do French oak.
Oh, interesting. Yes.
So this Chardonnay then tastes very, very different, but delightful. It's a wonderful Chardonnay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
a French oak one next to a American oak. you would be able to tell the difference. So talk to us a little bit about the differences, and are you toasting your barrels and
Right.
some of that?
Yes, so absolutely. So Jones basically used three different oaks, primarily French oak, American, and then sometimes Hungarian. So the French oak is in parts a little bit of a more subtle taste to the wine, as opposed to the American oak, which you really get those strong flavors of vanilla and caramel and things of that nature. So the Hungarian they use in their reds once in a while, but none of the oak, the reds that I've chosen tonight have been oaked in Hungarian oak. They're either French or American. But yeah, so the wine barrels are toasted, and that's what imparts that lovely buttery or caramel taste that get from the wines. And that, once again, that's the secondary piece of wine tasting, is you get the fruit from the grape, but then you get those secondary flavors that are from the winemaking process or from the barrels. So,
which I really feel in this one on the palate, it gives it a softer finish. It's more of, it does have that little bit of oaky, little bit of honey, a little bit of nutty flavor to it, and I think that might be from the oak barrels.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm actually, because I'm so used to the French oak Chardonnays, I was, when I was initially looking at this wine before I tasted it, you know, I was like, oh no, American oak. And then it was like, oh, this is really nice. I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. You know, Chardonnay is a grape that is, you know, widely done. Jones has been growing Chardonnay for a number of years, and their Chardonnays are typically, they're grown on the Wallach Slope. They're not in ancient lakes, so that's real warm growing area, unlike the ancient lakes, which is higher elevation and cooler temperatures. They produce really great Chardonnay grapes. And our winemaker, Victor, that I was talking about, has produced, he likes to use oak and stainless steel. And this particular wine, this 2019 Chardonnay, is a combination of that. So it's fermented in 100% American oak for 30 days, and then it gets transferred to stainless steel tanks to finish it off. So.
Casey,
yes.
Before we move on to our next wine, can you tell us a little bit? You said we're tasting for a finish. What do you mean by that?
So when you taste wine, that's one of the steps of the wine tasting is the finish. So when you taste the wine, you want to see what kind of a finish does it have? Does it have a long, crisp finish? Does it have or it has no finish at all, and it just stops short?
What do you mean by finish?
Yes. Well, finish is sort of hard to describe. But when I describe finish, I just talk about what you feel in the back of your throat. And so
isn't it how kind of long the taste hangs in there before it disappears?
Right. You know, yes, that's true. And so the finish is a piece that you want to you definitely want to think about when you're tasting. And I guess that's why I talk a little bit about the finish, is that so you notice it. So you're not, you know, because there's a difference between drinking wine and tasting wine. And so when you taste, you want to really notice everything that's happening in your body. And that is the finish is a part of that. So.
Great. And so one of our participants has asked, can you tell if there's what does aging in stainless steel add or detract from?
It really, the aging in stainless steel doesn't, you know, once again, I'm not a winemaker, so I know some, but not, you know, as much as if we had the winemaker here. So I want to, you know, say this with a disclaimer. I am certainly not a winemaker, but I do know that the stainless steel it does not impart much to it. So if you've ever tasted something called a naked Chardonnay, that's a Chardonnay that's been only in stainless steel, and it's really can be very acidic and crisp, as opposed to a Chardonnay that's been in oaked, which is very buttery and full, you know, fuller bodied and have more of a creamy mouthfeel. So the stainless steel just lets the fruit shine, right? The fermentation in the fruits. So, because when the wine is juiced, it's put into these gigantic stainless steel tanks, and that's, you know, it's just the fermentation process is happening within that. But yeah.
Maybe you could help me too, as my understanding of it too was, okay, you start out in the oak and then you recognize that the wine has gotten a significant amount of flavoring from the oak, and now we just want it to stay more neutral, so we transfer it to a stainless steel. Is that something that you've heard? So the stainless.
I'm sorry, Barbara, I didn't hear that last part of your question, so if you could repeat yourself.
Transferring it from oak to stainless steel puts it in a more neutral environment while it ages, instead of, because you get too much oak flavoring, and so.
Could you do that?
I don't know. I'm asking.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that I don't know. You know, the winemaking process is sort of an art and a science. And I know when I visit with our winemaker, he sort of has just a very interesting take on what he does with the wine. And he has many of our whites, which people are surprised about. We offer a Viognier, which I didn't bring tonight, but that's oaked. And, you know, so he does some interesting things with our wine that you don't always expect. So.
Yeah, and I found something with the Chardonnays about 20 years ago where they were completely oaked, aged. They were over, you know, very, very buttery, very, very oaky. And it was probably maybe about 10, 15 years ago where they started doing the stainless steel, and you could tell that difference. It was a complete flip-flop with the Chardonnays. It just recreated a Chardonnay. So now we're kind of going back into the melding of a little bit of oak and a little bit of the stainless steel to give it that great balance.
Right.
That makes sense.
Excellent.
Should we move to the next one?
Okay, we're ready to move on to our next wine.
Yes.
Okay. Christy, did you want to talk a little bit about your food pairing with Chardonnay really quick?
We could, yeah. We'll just keep it nice and short. Yes, this one, we're doing some summer pairing, something really light to go with all of our summer wines today. I did do this one with a pesto pasta. And the reason I did that with these fresh ingredients with the basil, the pine nuts, and the lemon is all going to bring out those nuances that we were just talking about. So with that, with the nuts that you use, it's going to bring out that little bit of butteriness, and with a little bit of lemon juice that you add to it is going to bring out the brightness. So as we're just saying, with the oak and the stainless steel, this is going to balance everything out.
Great. Perfect.
Sounds fantastic.
Okay, so our next wine that we're going to be pouring is our 2017 Pinot Gris. So
I love this one.
Everybody's already done that. So this is a 2017
Pinot. One of my favorite wines, by the way. So.
Oh, our Pinot Gris, yeah. Our Pinot Gris are so very popular. Pinot Gris itself is just very approachable. It pairs well with a lot of different foods. It's a great standalone wine, and I agree. Pinot Gris is super popular. So. These Pinot Gris, the Chardonnay grapes were grown in the Wailuke Slope. These Pinot Gris grapes were grown in ancient lakes, higher elevation, cooler temperatures, like I said before. So you're going to have some acidity and some brightness to this wine. This wine is completely, we talked about oaking. This one is completely fermented in stainless steel. And if we go through the wine tasting steps, we look, you know, we can see that once again, this is really, I don't know if you can see that, that's kind of hard to do, but if you hold it up against a white wine, the white piece of paper, very pale golden color, very, actually maybe a little bit paler than that Chardonnay. So you'll notice that this wine, that's, you know, just a little bit. It's super clear. Some of Jones's wines, I know people have come into the tasting room and said, oh my gosh, they look like water. They're so clear. And that is the hallmark of those ancient lakes grapes. So let's take a little sniff. So I don't know, what's everybody smelling?
It's a vastly different smell than the Chardonnay.
It really is vastly different.
It's a lot softer.
Totally different nose.
Very different nose on the Pinot Gris. Sometimes I think that this Pinot isn't quite as predominant as that Chardonnay. Yes, so Pinot Gris, our Pinot Gris is very soft and has a lot of stone fruit to it. what I'm getting on the, so Christy, I'll let you, so what do you think? What are the notes that you're getting on the Pinot Gris?
Well, this is our comment said, it's not as acidic. It is softer. It's a little bit more fleshy fruit and a little bit more round on here. So I do get more peach and even some honeysuckle. So those are those little bit softer notes to my nose anyways.
In comparison with the Chardonnay, to me, the Chardonnay was very citrusy and
exactly
bright. So this one is a little softer wine. I definitely get some pear. Yeah, so.
Yeah, several of our participants said one loves the Pinot Gris, less acidic, which is really soft.
Which is really nice, yeah.
Really great. Really tastes light and fresh compared to the Chardonnay, which is also good. Another one found a little bit of herb.
Yeah, oh, some herb, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sure thing.
You bet, you bet. So let's take a nice big sip.
While you guys are sipping, if none of you get these floral scents and these melons and all this stuff that you read, I didn't either until I did a tour. It was called a scent tour. I forget what it was, but anyway, they put different things in glasses like lemons and oranges and coffee and dirt and different things, and we had to go around and sniff the wine and match the glass. And it was only then that I got how they got the descriptions on the bottle of wine.
Right.
After I left that tasting, I thought, oh, now I'm educated and I will get it all. And I went right back to never getting one single scent that anybody thought. So if you're not getting those scents, and it's okay. It
really is okay. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, Barbara, that's called standards tasting. And so that's what you do. So if you want to figure out citrus in a wine, you cut half an orange and you smell the orange and then you smell the wine and smell. And then, what that does is train your brain. And it's kind of crazy how it works, right?
Yeah.
When I've done it before, I just thought, wow, that's really amazing.
Yeah, they had like 80 different glasses filled with all these different scents, and then they gave you the wine, and then you had to go around the table and find the scent that matched the wine, and then it made sense.
Yes.
So sitting there, I'm not getting the orchid floral.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, once again, wine tasting is very subjective, so.
And also explains a lot about some of those things that they tell you, like with a hint of dirt and gunpowder. It's like, really, I've never tried gunpowder or dirt, but I'm gonna take your word for it.
My favorite is barnyard.
Oh, barnyard. That's bad. That's barnyard's bad.
Yeah, barnyard. Oh gosh.
Oh, that dirt thing. That's what they call earthy. And
the funk.
I wondered about that until I was in that tasting and I smelled the earth of the dirt, and then I smelled the wine and went, oh my gosh, it smells like dirt. Or so they'll say it's earthy. There you go.
Earthy. That's right. That's right. It is kind of crazy how that works.
I know.
I know. So funny. Wine is so fun. I mean, what a great fun hobby to have. So
I really don't think I'm ever going to get the nose thing though.
Yeah, the noses. Yeah, that's right. But that's okay. Drinking wine is all good. So
unless I have my 80 glasses with the different scents, then I can do it.
Set them up all over your house, and I will come by and do this with you. So, Christy,
I would too if you invite me. That would be really fun. So. Oh gosh.
What did you do with this?
Well, this one I think is really a great standalone wine for a white wine. So if you're just going over to a friend's house having a glass of wine, this is a really good food pairing wine. It goes with just about everything, but it's also a great appetizer wine. So if you're just looking for something simple with a cheese board, the cheeses that you can choose any cheese is going to create all of these great nuances or accentuate the nuances up here. If you don't know how to do a cheese board, one of my favorite sayings is something old, something new, something sheep, and something blue. So an aged cheddar, a fresh brie, manchego, and maybe like a salty blue cheese gorgonzola, because it doesn't matter what you pair with this one. It's going to be fabulous. It's just going to bring out all of those flavors that we were just talking about. Soften it up, bring it out. So yes.
Sounds fantastic.
I've seen that little saying that says, my cheese, my wine and cheese, they comfort me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's wine and cheese.
Wine and cheese, they cover me. Yes.
I'm really glad you didn't throw in something borrowed, because that just seems.
Yeah. Right. No, that's no.
Yeah.
Wondering where you were going with
Also,
that for a second.
anything a little bit maybe spicy, because it does have those fruity forward notes. So like a spicy Thai food would be great with this one. So
It is,
yeah,
yes.
and that's
Excellent.
Okay, so moving on, are we ready to go to our last? This is our last, what we consider our white, is our rosé. So this is a 2018 Rosé of Syrah. These grapes are grown on the ancient lakes. Thank you, Barbara. We look at, one thing I wanted to point out, it was the differences in the Syrah grapes. So our Jones of Washington has Syrah grapes that are strictly for rosé, and they are grown on the ancient lake, and that is what this wine is made from. We also have our frontline Syrah, which we'll be tasting later, and those grapes are grown on the Wahluke slope. And the reason we have those two different vineyards is because of the rosé. We know that the rosé is going to be lighter and crisper on that higher elevation, cooler temperature, as opposed to the Wahluke slope, which is hotter, drier, and you're going to impart that richer, bold taste to the reds. So let's take a look. Gorgeous in the glass. This Rosé of Syrah is really pretty. So I love rosé. Rosé in the glass. Rosé has become very popular, by the way, because rosé is winemakers now are making it very dry, and that tends to be a better sell to most people, because sometimes the rosé is, the rosé in the past have been very sweet, has a high residual sugar. So the wines that you're seeing, the rosés that you're tasting nowadays tend to be a little bit drier and fruitier, and that's a nice combination. So I love this wine for tasting because it is really aromatic, and so Barbara, this one is an easy one to pick out. So
we talked, Casey and Kenny, about how maybe 20 years ago, rosés were made from all the leftover grapes, and so nobody really liked them. And then over the last, decade do you think it is?
Probably about that.
They started doing them out of varietals, like this one is out of Syrah. And that's when I really started liking rosés.
Yes.
Better than others, as we all know. And this one is so nice. I really enjoy it, because some rosés are rosé-ish and others are wonderfully outstanding. This one is really good.
Oh gosh, well, thank you.
I like them out of the varietals. I don't like those ones from the leftover grapes.
Right, I would agree. The quality of the grapes matter in the wine, no doubt about that. So let's take a big long sniff of this rosé. And this is, the Jones wines are so aromatic, and there's lots of, let's see what we get on the nose on this. So,
lots of strawberry, very sweet. I'd even go some cotton candy.
I can actually get the strawberry in this one.
Me too.
Yeah, you can really taste the strawberry. Strawberry, yay! Yeah, this is a great wine for the aromatics. I sometimes get a little bit of I get some cherry notes to this wine as well. Does anybody else do that? Lovely wine. Yep, it's got some cherry notes to it. So let's take a big sip, and we'll remember to roll that around in your mouth so you get all of the wine all over your taste buds, so you can see what you think here.
Nice.
So this wine is to me, is really creamy on the palate. And I don't know how our winemaker does this, because this is stainless steel fermentation too, no oak to it, but I always get a real rich, creamy taste to that. I don't know if anybody else is tasting that, but creamy with some nice acidity. And if you look at our wine tasting notes, it also has, which makes me laugh, and I don't know if anybody else will get a charge out of this, but watermelon Jolly Rancher on the finish.
I was just going to say that.
Yep.
Does anybody get that? It was really funny.
So if you know,
Let me see.
so watermelon Jolly Rancher is what you get on that finish, and so if you know that,
totally get that. Yeah.
Which was really funny to me because when Casey and I were tasting these, I thought this particular vintage was actually a little sweeter than last year's, but she was saying that the residual sugar was less in this vintage versus last year. So I'm not sure, you know, everybody's taste is different. It could have been off the nose, it could be on the palate. We're all a little bit different. But there is, you know, it's still very fresh. It's still very summery. And what more like summer can you get than watermelon?
Then rosé,
so,
right?
Yes. So what I would do, I do a watermelon mozzarella salad with this one. You get the freshness of the watermelon. It's going to bring up those notes. The mozzarella is going to maybe tame down just a little bit of acidity if you want it to. If you wanted to bring out the acidity, sprinkle a little bit of cayenne pepper on it. Or you can even swap it up and get it to bring out those strawberry notes that we were smelling earlier and do a strawberry and feta salad. It's going to be a little bit more tart, but it's going to, you know, change it up, whatever you like, you know, if you want to tame it down, if you want to bring it up. So either way, it's a win-win situation and a great summer feast.
I was just going to say, you're hired, Christy, and then I saw that Lisa said she wants the recipe. Can we get that recipe for that water?
We're gonna be posting these on Facebook. So tomorrow you should be able to get all of these recipes. Absolutely.
And Christy is an extraordinaire with the pairing and really innovative. She would pair food with wine that I would never think of. So yeah, try it out. You'll be surprised and pleasantly surprised.
My next wine dinner, you're hired.
Yeah,
I'm there.
So I'm curious before we move on to the reds, just you know, it is summer, it is warm. Most people don't want to cook inside if they can possibly avoid it. What summer to me means barbecue. So what meats would you be looking to barbecue if you are a meat eater to go with these white wines, which you don't usually associate?
Yeah, white wines, we're probably going to go a little bit on the lighter side. So going back to the Chardonnay with the pesto pasta salad, you can incorporate chicken with it. Or with the Pinot Gris, I would do like a charred salmon. So kind of keep it a little bit light. But again, like you said, going outside and grilling is going to give it that extra little nuance to it as well. So that little bit of smokiness flavor, it's going to bring out all those different flavors. But for those ones, I would kind of keep it a little bit on the lighter side. As we transition here really soon to the reds, we're going to go into those a little bit more heavier meats.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think we're ready to jump to the red wines now. So you might want to take a minute to cleanse your palate and take a drink of water. If you have like a neutral cracker, what you want to do is try to really cleanse your palate, because we're getting into the reds and we want to get the sweetness that we have, the fruitiness out of our palates. So take a drink of water. And as I say, if you have a neutral cracker, you might want to nibble on that before we jump into the reds. So, okay, so our first red that we're going to taste for Jones of Washington is our 2014 Merlot. And Merlot, just FYI, the Merlot, the varietal, grows super well in the state of Washington. Merlot, Cabernet, Syrah, those are all the big varietals that you'll find in the state of Washington. And Jones, the Merlot, is actually one of the very first varietal that Jack Jones planted down on the Wahluke Slope. So all of the wines that we're going to be tasting today are all those grapes are grown on the Wahluke Slope, which is hot, dry, next to the Columbia River, sandy, loamy soil, bolder flavors, bigger reds than the whites. So Okay, so this is our 2014. So first of all, we're going to take a look at it against. So this is going to show up a little bit better against the white sheet. We can see that maybe that's more of a, it doesn't show up. You guys will be able to look. It doesn't show up as well on the Zoom, I'm noticing, because it looks darker. But I know that you'll be able to see it at home or wherever you're tasting. But this is really a beautiful ruby color. And one of the things, once again, it's wine tasting is about clues and what do you notice? So often with red wines, you'll see it's a clue to whether the wine is younger or more aged. And sometimes wine, if it has like an orange or a golden rim, that tells you that that wine has been aged for a while. So you can tell that Jones, there's no gold. So this is a younger wine, ready to drink. 2014, it's been aging in the bottle for a while. So it is 100% Merlot. All of our varietals tonight are going to be 100%. They are not cut with any other wine. So got that deep ruby color.
Casey, have you, I don't notice on the notes, but how is the Jones of Washington wines aging? Have you had an opportunity to age some of your wines? How long do they keep?
Yes, so what Jones usually, what our winemaker typically tells us to tell our customers that our wines are great in the bottle, properly cellared or properly, you never want to let your wine get hot. So if you have like a wine fridge from Costco, or if you've got a cooler closet in your basement, that properly stored, that they'll last, at least 5 years. So, yeah. So
I don't think it'll last that long in my house.
Yeah.
Christy, I'm right there with you.
But they're also ready to drink right now. So.
Well, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, so
I love the smell.
Okay, now we're going to take, so this is going to be really different than the whites. The reds are going to be much different when you smell. So take a big, so. Swirl that wine around. So what are you guys getting out of this? What are you sniffing out of this wine? What flavors?
I think it's very earthy. I get a lot of herbs out of it.
Yep, I see some.
Yep, spice.
Pepper.
Yep.
Pepper. Chocolate. Cheers to chocolate.
Yep.
Yep.
Hey, chocolate always goes good with red
Jammy.
Sure does. Yep. Sure does. Yeah, jammy. Very fruit forward. All of Jones's reds tend to be very fruit forward. So
the palate is so different.
Sorry. I was going to say, Casey, yes. On the notes that I have, all these wines we've been tasting have gotten lots of nice awards.
Yes.
So that's very nice.
Yes. So this 2014 Merlot, you'll notice on your tasting notes that we just included some of the awards that we have for Jones. All of them are award winners. We just put one of our awards down there. So, but if you ever come into the tasting room, and we hope you will, we certainly can tell you about all of the awards that Jones has gotten, and our winemaker has done an extraordinary job on our delivering wonderful wine for a great price.
Well, and you all were named the 2012 Washington Winery of the Year. Correct?
Yes.
From the Wine Press Northwest magazine.
Yes.
So, fantastic, and you're so local. It's fantastic.
Yeah. We're just, the thing that I like about the Jones wine is that they're so very approachable and friendly, and a great price. The price is just, you get a good value for the price that you pay for the Jones wine. So we're very happy.
How many out there in the land have had an expensive wine that doesn't taste very good?
Yeah.
So when you get the reasonably priced, really delicious wines, I'm always thankful. So,
yes.
Way to go, Jones.
Couple hands from our participants too. We've all
done it.
Yeah.
All right.
So disappointing.
That is disappointing when you spend a ton of money and the wine is, you don't enjoy the wine. So that's why you have to taste. So, all right. So is everybody ready to take a sip?
Yes.
So one thing that our winemaker always says about using particularly red wines is to make sure that you open them up. They need, if you have an aerator, or if that works instantly, or you can decant your wines. Barbara and Kenny and Christy, you probably agree, and all of those folks out there, is that, the more you let that red wine open, it's going to blow off all the ethanol, the alcohol. You're going to soften those tannins. And if you can do a little experiment where you open a bottle of red wine and taste it, and then open it up and let it sit for 30 minutes or more. It's a completely different wine, guaranteed. Just about every reds, that's what you're going to find. So.
But Casey, isn't that also unlimited? So you can open it up, but that doesn't mean you can leave it open for like 4 days.
Well, true.
What happens to it if you leave it open too long?
Well, then if you leave it open too long, and then it is not going to be tasting very good after a few days. We tell folks that if you open a bottle of our reds, and then if you pour, we have, part of the enemy of red wines, and really any wine, is oxygen. And so if you can have some sort of device, we have something called a vacuum van. Some people use gas to seal off their wines to keep the integrity of the wine, the character of the wine intact. But it's okay to refrigerate your red wines too, because that will extend the life of your red wine. So, but yeah, you don't want to leave it open and taste it 3 days later, because it's probably not going to taste very good. So.
No, it tends to have a very vinegary taste to it if you leave your red wines open for too long. But again, who leaves them open for more than 4 days? I don't. So,
Casey, on your comment about refrigerating red wine, you only mean after you've opened it, right?
Yes.
You don't want to refrigerate a red wine in the refrigerator before you've opened it.
Yes, not necessarily. If you have a wine refrigerator that you want to put your red wines in, then you can do that. Keep your temperature around 40 degrees, 40 to 45 typically. But yes, if you keep your red wine refrigerated, be sure to let it come to room temperature. All right. Yeah, I'm reading what somebody said. Who on earth takes 3 days to drink a bottle of wine?
Right there. Actually, Casey, before we move on, I do have a question that came up. It's probably in the Q&A. Question about the cellaring for Jones wines, particularly the red wines. Is that 5 years from the vintage date or 5 years from the release date?
Yes, that is 5 years from the vintage date. So you can also do, you can give it, once again, I'm going to tell a little story about some Jones Chardonnay that my husband and I tasted. We had a Chardonnay, and Jones Chardonnay, it was in our wine refrigerator, and it kind of got shoved to the back, and it was like a 2008. And we had kind of forgotten about it, and I thought, oh my God, this wine's not going to be good, but we'll open it and see. So we opened it up, and by George, that was, that wine was like 7 or 8 years old. This was several years ago. But it still was okay. It had stayed in a cool, dry place. So, you just, once again, drink the wine. If you don't drink the wine and you want to have those tannins settle down and soften a bit, taste it, try it. But, it just depends. A lot depends on it. And one of it is how you store it. So.
Great. Thank you.
You bet. So are we ready to move on to the Cab Franc?
Yes, I know this is a personal favorite of Barbara's.
Yes. 2015 Cabernet Franc. Oop, I want to go back because I think I missed Christy. So do you want to talk really quick, Christy? Because
if we have.
Do you want to talk real quick about the food pairing for the Merlot?
Just a little bit, because this was one of my favorite pairings, because what Barbara did was I took out spices from my spice rack, because when I smelled it, and we said we got a lot of that thyme, a lot of spices, I pulled out the spices from my spice rack and had a couple different spices. It turned out to be Italian spices. So what I did was an eggplant parmesan. I had thyme, rosemary, and basil, and they all did a separate reaction to my wine. The thyme really enhanced it. The basil just kind of softened my nose, and then the rosemary just was really even. But with the eggplant Parmesan, you can do a lasagna or anything with those Italian spices as well. But what it did was, because of all those spices I used, it really created a neutral palette for the Merlot, and it let it shine. It did not overwhelm it or underwhelm it at all. And I think it was just the combination of the spices, the meatiness of the eggplant, and then the mellowing of the cheese. It was just a great balance that enhanced and also, you know, dehanced some of the nuances in the wine. So it just let this Merlot just shine. So that was one of the things I hadn't experienced too much, was the food pairing to not affect the wine so much. But yeah, because it's such a great wine, I just wanted to let it go, let it shine.
Eggplant Parmesan, yum, yum.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to move on to the 2015 Cabernet Franc, and this is one of my favorite wines. Thank you, Barbara. Glad we might have the same palate. I love this wine. We almost went with a Cabernet Sauvignon, but we decided to do something just a little bit different because not everybody has been exposed to a Cabernet Franc. And I think that the Jones Cab Franc is really great. And not everybody, once again, has tried, you know, part of wine tasting is experimenting. And so the Cab Franc is kind of a fun choice, something that is a little bit out of the ordinary. So if we look at it in the glass, once again, doesn't show up super good on the Zoom, but if you look at the glass, it's really like a ruby, almost a deep purple color. Really, really pretty in the glass. It's 16 months in Barbara, so French oak. So this is 16 months in French oak fermentation. And so we've looked, and then let's take a sniff and see what we smell. What do we smell in this wine?
Oh, I love that nose. I love that nose. Oh,
yeah, it's great wine.
I could smell that all day.
Yeah, I get a lot of black pepper, a little softness, like what they say leather, and just some different spices to it.
Wow. That's a great nose.
Yeah, it's got a great nose. You know, Cab Franc often has green pepper notes to it. This particular wine, I think, is more of a black pepper. It's got some great, I think I get that plum taste, you know, sniff off of it as well, those aromatics.
A lot of plum. Yep, plum and black pepper. You're right, Casey. Lots of black pepper.
So let's go ahead and taste. What do we think about the taste?
Well, everyone's tasting, Casey. Tell us about the orange tractor that's on the front of.
Oh, right. Yeah, the orange tractor. So the orange tractor, thank you, Barbara, is that icon of the tractor, the rooster, and the sun is emblematic of the Jones family being longtime farmers. And I think one of the Jones sons, I can't remember which one, came up with the idea of that back in the, you know, the early 2000s when Jones decided to put together this winery. And we just think it's so, people love our label, and it's got instant recognition, particularly, you know, we hear about that a lot, about our iconic labels. So thank you for pointing that out.
The first time I ever drove by and I saw the orange tractor out there, I go, oh, what's that orange tractor for?
Yeah.
And then when you went to the Quincy, in the new Quincy location, and the tractor moved, I went, okay, I know what that's for.
Yes. Yeah, the orange tractor is iconic. That is all everybody knows about the orange tractor and about the rooster, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, all right.
Somebody else thinks this is their favorite as well.
Yeah, this one really changes on the palate too. When you take a sip, it's actually very soft. I get notes of even like chocolate to it.
Yeah, I get a lot of chocolate on the palate on this wine. So
I love chocolate. So.
So until this, for those out you and watching, everybody, I'm not a Cab Franc fan until this one.
Yeah. Cheers. We're glad about that. I'm glad we've got a convert, because I love Cab Franc, and I think we've done a really good one. So this is our 2015 vintage, Barbara. I think our 2016 might be better.
Oh,
Yum. So just wait. We haven't released it yet, but it's super, super good. So
I'm coming over there.
Well, this one, what I love about this one is you can go either way to either enhance the spice or to bring it down. So if you wanted to enhance the spice, I would do, even though, you know, it's still summertime, so still barbecuing season, maybe a black pepper steak or your you know, tried and true grilled burger, but put pepper jack, maybe a spicy corn salsa on it to really bring up that black pepper. If you are a little spice sensitive and want to bring it down, try it with a gyro. The lamb, the fattiness of the lamb and that creaminess of the tzatziki sauce is really going to bring that down. But then you can add even some heirloom tomatoes to it. Those are in season right now. And that will bring out some of the little bit lighter notes. I almost get a little pomegranate in here, so that'll bring out a little bit of that bounciness to it. But because we were talking about, you know, that chocolatiness, you can even do like a chocolate mousse or red velvet cake if you have that sweet tooth. So very versatile wine.
With the Cab Franc, I totally agree, because it definitely, yum, yum. I've done some chocolate with this Cab Franc and it's just excellent. So
I don't know if there's anybody out there, and you can comment on chat, but often I love the nose and then the taste isn't my favorite, or vice versa. And this is one of the rare ones where I love the nose and the taste. So I don't know if anybody experiences that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can go by the nose and say I won't like it, and vice, you know, but this one is both. And I love that.
I'm glad, because you're absolutely right, Barbara. What you get on the nose is not necessarily what you get on the palate. So it's nice to have all of those elements work together to make a great wine. So I'm so happy you like the Cab Franc. That's awesome.
I know that Barbara and Casey know this about me, but so I lived in the Willamette Valley in Oregon for a number of years. I just seemed to move from wine region to wine region to wine region, being in Northern California originally. And you know, down there, not cab, but Pinot Noir is everything.
Yes.
They make it all over the place. And I love the smell of Pinot Noir. It is probably one of my least favorite red wines.
Yeah.
And every time I go tasting, I'm like, oh yeah. And then, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I am not alone. I am not alone.
Well, I love Oregon Pinot Noirs too. So boy, yum, yum. And I love them. I love them taste. I love the smell. So I have not yet found a Washington one, a Pinot Noir that I really super like. So if anybody has a great idea, let me know about that. So I love good Pinot Noir.
So just to pay attention to time, we should probably get to my favorite red wine that Joan.
All right. So yes, in interest of time, so we're gonna, our last tasting today is our 2015 Syrah. So the Syrah is estate grown, once again on the Wallach slope. It's 100% Syrah. It's not cut with anything else. It is also aged 14 months in French oak. If we look at it, I know that it doesn't show once again, but if you look at it at home, you can see it's got almost a black purple color. Really pretty in the glass. Syrah is one of our fan favorites at the tasting room. We sell a lot of Syrah because, you know, Syrah grapes grow great in the state of Washington, and it's a little bit more fruit forward and a little softer tannins that really appeal to a lot of folks. So let's take a smell, shall we?
I am momentarily quite sad because when we started, there were 6 bottles here and now there are none.
Yeah, we're on our last one, sadly but true.
But we all know where we can.
We're open 7 days a week, so you can come down at, you know, anytime. Pick up one of each.
Yeah.
I did not drink all the bottles though. I did not. I just
just had a taste.
A lot of berries on this one, Casey.
Yeah.
Deep berries like black currant, raspberry. I even get a little bit of caramel. That softens the nose.
And that's from the oak. That's, you know, as opposed to the grapes, right? So I get some blackberry. The Syrahs are really fruit forward. Yeah, so let's take a big drink, see what's on the palate.
Oh, I just really like this wine. I just find it so, it's so happy to me. It just,
it is.
Yeah.
Syrah is a very, very friendly wine to drink. It's typically got soft tannins. This particular wine, I get a lot of herbaceous qualities to it, like thyme and some rosemary.
I'm not getting the smoky bacon.
Not get the smoky bacon from our winemaker, huh? Yeah, me either. Just FYI. But I do get some spice and some herbaceous qualities.
Does anybody get cinnamon? Because earlier I was tasting a cinnamon roll and I thought, oh, this might be great with the Syrah. And actually, it paired very well. So cinnamon, maybe not the smoky bacon, but what they say, that tobacco, that I call it grandma's attic.
Hey, see, has Jones of Washington always owned Waluke Slope, or do they rent it or purchase the wines?
So the Waluke Slope is an AVA, so it's American Viticulture Area, designated area. So Jones owns the land where the vineyards are, and so yeah. So Jones is just one of the wineries that grows grapes on the Ancient Lakes area, but we have there's some other wineries that grow there as well. So
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
So anyway.
Yeah, so since there is so much difference between the nose and the palate, there's a lot going on. This too is a great standalone wine, kind of like the Pinot Gris, but just the red version. So it doesn't need a lot of food, but it is a great food wine. So because there's so many nuances going on there, I would recommend what I call like the Shish Kebab palette. It's kind of like a cheese palette, because you can do your variety of meats and your variety of vegetables. So after you grill those up, and right now summertime, have some, zucchini, green pepper, tomatoes, all those in seasons. Put aside all of your little dipping sauces. So you can do sweet and savory, like barbecue, do jams, maybe something spicy, and some chutneys, and then dip each vegetable into one of those dipping sauces. Take a sip of your wine, because there's so much going on in this wine that you can be your own chef. You can be your own creator. So it is a great food wine, a lot going on. So just have fun with it.
Yeah, thank you.
Casey, just quickly, so for me, you're my first winery that does 100% screw tops.
Yeah.
And so I was curious about that, because some of them do, like the whites are screw tops, but the reds are still corked, and some do all corks. And so
right.
Just quickly,
yes.
I know we're running short.
So there is a lot of controversy about the screw tops as opposed to traditional wine corks. When I talked to the winemaker about, why did you choose? Because it's, his decision about the screw tops. So there's a couple of reasons. One of them is that there's a huge amount of research nowadays about the difference between corks and screw tops, and the integrity of wine. You rarely, we've all tasted corked wine, right? Where there's a fault in the cork, and you're drinking wet it smells like musty cardboard and dirty socks, right? So, with the screw tops, you just keep the integrity of the wine. And, he decided that was just a great way to go for all of our frontline wines. Now, also, we do, with our reserve program wines, which I don't have any tonight, but if you ever come in to taste, we do have a nice reserve program as well. And those are all still corked. They use the cork. But the other thing he emphasized was that cork there's a sustainability issue with cork. It takes 25 years for a cork tree to produce enough cork to strip it off and make into cork. So it's just a little more, in terms of sustainability, it's a little more friendly in that regard. So that's the difference of why we did that.
So I'm going to wind us up. Just a couple of comments from some of our participants. One is a question for Christy, which is, which one would you pair or recommend with a paella dinner?
I don't know what paella is. Is that?
Paella is a Spanish dish. It's rice, usually chicken and seafood from Spain.
Yeah.
So.
Pinot Gris.
Pinot Gris.
I would do the Pinot Gris. Yep. Chicken seafood. I think that one is because it's probably going to have a little bit of spices with it. So the sweetness of the wine is going to accentuate that little bit of spice. So yes. So Pinot Gris.
Great, excellent.
Just as an aside, paella is a big thing with our winemaker. He makes paella all the time, and I, I'll have to ask him what wine he pairs with that. So.
And if you get a different answer, share that on your Facebook page.
We will.
People want to know. And just a couple comments that this was fantastic. You guys are awesome. So thank you all. Can we do this again next Thursday? Seconded and thirded. And a wonderful comment to close this out, which was, seriously though, I haven't been able to do a tasting since February, and I didn't realize how much I missed it. Can we please do another? So just so our participants know, we are looking into it. I know Barbara and I are game, so we'll see what comes up. So keep an eye on it, and we'll definitely reach out and let you all know how that works out.
Yes.
Just
thank you guys for joining us. That was just wonderful.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
And if anybody has anything left in their wine, let's do a virtual cheers. Cheers.
The Jones of Washington and the Wenatchee.
Jones of Washington. Cheers, everyone. Hope you had fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah.
And thank
you everyone. You guys were awesome. That was so fun.
Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks again.
Have a great weekend. And I'm going to be over there, Casey. I'm going over there.
Yay.
Thank you all very much. Have a good weekend.
Thanks again.